just as a quick update on what is this and where you are right now and what is Escabona. Escabona in Latin means good food, and it's also a conference that we run in Austin, Texas. We've been running it for the past 4 years, and it has brought together passionate participants interested in stirring up the status quo of food. So our conference Escabona, it's all about hands-on learning and networking, and it's really about discussing important issues to the industry, such as regenerative agriculture, nutritional transparency, radical traceability, and food waste solutions. So welcome again. I'd also like to point out that at 3 p.m. we actually have an open bar. So from 3 to 5, you can grab a drink if you're so inclined. And that's a fun part. Yeah, open bar, right? It's pretty fun. Okay, so our next speaker is William Madden, co-founder of Whole Brain Consulting. William Madden has worked in the food industry for the past 23 years. He specializes in big picture operations, supply chain management, and contract negotiation between food companies and contract manufacturers. Will has helped everyone from startups to multi-million-dollar businesses find the perfect match contract manufacturer, setting them up for long-term success, not a quick fix. He is also the author of Separating the Con Man from the Co-Man, a guide to contract manufacturing. All right, let's turn it over to William, and welcome to the stage.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah? All right,
Yeah.
Cool. Worked out well. So again, remember 3 o'clock, free drinks.
But you have to
Right
stay.
there, but you have to stay till 3 o'clock. So you don't get to go up, walk around, come back, you're stuck here till 3. Also, if anybody has any questions as we go along, feel free to just reach out and ask. It's not like the hold them to the end type of thing. So with that, Whole Brain Consulting is a 20-person outsourced operations firm with offices in Colorado, Illinois, Florida. We're full service operations. We're going to go over the do's and don'ts of choosing your contract manufacturer. Grant and I wrote an entire book on this. We're going to focus in on a few of the key subject areas. We do a lot of diligence for private equity firms, and we keep finding the same mistake over and over and over that make your businesses basically uninvestable, or you have to hire somebody like me afterwards to, renegotiate this whole thing. So my partner Brandon, right over there, he does quality and supply chain. Wow, this really does jump in. So what we want to go is get. Yes, I'll move over. Like 10 feet away. All right. So what we're going to do is go over what makes up bad contracts, how people get stuck in them, how to identify favorable and unfavorable terms, things of that nature. So rookie mistakes. Can anybody here find the mistake? Anyone? It's the simple things that wind up nailing people all the time. It's the little things that you're not looking for because you're concentrating on specific areas of your agreement or specific areas of your relationship, and it turns out that you miss an overarching thing. Some of the biggest rookie mistakes are unclear definition of who owns IP rights. So when you have a product, part of your value is actually the recipe, the process for how you put it together, and things of that nature. Those are things that you don't realize the level of value until it's too late. We've had clients, one paid $12 million to get his recipe, the other one paid $650,000 to get their recipes, one paid $430,000 to get their recipes. These are all after the fact. Literally because the companies who were buying them, the guys who were investing in them, all said you needed to clear this up. It's become a bigger and bigger issue because most people don't really think about it. They go to their co-man and they're like, hey, can you develop this for me? Co-man's like, sure. But they never put in their contract who actually owns the rights to what's developed until it's too late. People having these nice, long-term, unflexible contracts. We have one co-man whose standard contract is in perpetuity. So you will have a contract with them forever for everything that you make in the entire world for your brand. And they had people lined up to sign them. And when they went and sold their nice big beverages and nice big strategics, spent millions of dollars getting out of those agreements. It's a mess. People have signed 5-year, 10-year agreements. I had one who just this morning I was negotiating 7-year exclusive agreement, and I was begging my client on the phone, do not do this. I'm like, I can reverse engineer your recipe within 72 hours. Do not give up what you're giving up for something that doesn't have the same level of value that you believe it is at the stage that you're at. We've been running across companies that have 500 locations of restaurants around the country that don't own the recipes to their own products. It's been a big problem. The other thing is, I'll like start beatboxing like, oh yeah, that's no tunnels. Hello. Opaque pricing. So another big problem that people have is in pricing. People go in and are like, all right, I need to make this thing for $1. We're going to make this for $1. Let's do it. Over the long term, you know, your volumes increase. We'll go through it more, but your volumes increase, your order sizes increase, and you don't reap any of that value. But we'll go through that. No baseline assumptions from co-packers. So you're going in, you get a price from the co-packer, he tells you it's $1 a unit, but then you actually get up and running, and he goes, oh, it's $1.75 a unit. And you're like, well, where's the change? And he goes, oh, well, I thought I could run the line with 2 people. You're like, there's no way to run that line with 2 people. Exactly. That's why your price is $1.75. You don't have the tools to push back on the co-packer because you don't know what that dollar is based off of. So we've seen that one happen a lot where people get in, and I'll go through it later on in a little bit more detail. Choosing a co-man who's a lot bigger than you. People sit there and say, oh, I want to go with, you know, the harsh sides of the world. Huge co-man, 39 locations, tons of capacity, and they are perfectly set up for Kellogg's or a General Mills. Their lines are designed for it. The volume that they do is designed for it. And they're not bad people at all. It's just they're used to a line that runs like a Ferrari, and now you're driving down Michigan Ave during rush hour. It doesn't work for them, you know, and they will go down swinging, trying to make it work, but it's not fair to either of you, because it's not the business that they're in, it's not the business that you should be in. Now, eventually, you wind up getting to the area where that's the type of co-man that you need because you're making. Now, Bueller. Not go for the swap.
There you go, yeah. And then just make sure it faces up.
Hello?
There. Okay.
Is this better?
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, I was just going to tell you all to move up to the front row. We'll have it be like kindergarten.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody up front. Right. No, but having a co-man is too big for you makes it difficult for them to perform to your expectations. Plus, you wind up having inventory that you just don't need, that goes out of code. You wind up finding your fantastic new item at, you know, grocery outlet, big lots, you know, discounters. Plus, your operating capital gets tied up, and you don't have the money to function as a business. And then unclear specifications. Brandon will be here at 1:30 and let you know all the dangers of how to not have that. But, you know, specifications are there to ensure that you get the product that you have to tell the co-man, here's explicitly what I need in order for me to buy it, and you have to know how to do that. So we're going to go more into who owns IP rights. If you don't know that you own your recipe, you don't. And if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So when you've had those 100 calls where they're like, oh yeah, everything's yours, it's yours. That contract that you signed has this thing that says, this is the entire agreement between the parties. Make sure that it's in there. Because if it's not, you can wind up having problems. And remember, you trust the person that you went into business with, right? But both of your businesses are designed to be sold, and I've had this conversation with Coleman 100 times. Oh, we're a family-run business. We're never going to sell. Like, look at me and say, if I give you $1 billion tomorrow morning, will you sell your company to me? He's like, I'll mail you the keys. I'm like, so you are for sale? I'm like, so you are for sale. It's just a question of price. Same thing with people building their brands. You're building a brand, especially in the food industry right now, not necessarily for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to run. You're building one to exit to a strategic. And so you both sides of that table, the seats, are going to change. So you have to build a good contract and have good understanding of IP rights so that when those changes occur, there's no ambiguity. The other thing is process ownership. Most people, unless you're putting in equipment, will never get process ownership. It just doesn't happen. The reason being is that they're in the business of doing this every single day. So they have to own that process, otherwise they just can't run their lines. Now, you don't think anything of it, but every co-man thinks that their process is truly unique, and very few who actually are. But some of the things that we put into our agreements is these catch-alls that say, either we both recognize neither of us own the process because it's industry accepted process, or we put in there that, hey, co-man, you own it, but I'll give you an irrevocable, royalty-free, lifetime, worldwide, non-exclusive license to use that technology, or in reverse, they grant it to us. You need that little catch-all, because what we've been finding is people have been waiting until a major event is going on with the brand and then pull out and say, oh, well, you can't move this because we own the process. And it wasn't clearly stated, or it was stated in the contract that the co-man owns it because they need ownership of it to, do their job. And at the end of it, it becomes a fight. It becomes a fight when you don't have time to settle the fight, so you settle it monetarily. The other thing is if you have products that you really believe can be patented, get the patents. Spend the money. Try not to get design patents, try and get utility patents, because design patents is just the roadmap for how I cheat your patent. A utility patent means that I can't. I'm going to be writing you a check to use it. So if it is patentable, check and make sure that it is. And actually go through the legwork of doing it. Make sure that your co-man's assigned over any intellectual property rights that they have if they co-developed it with you. All of that, don't have it be one of those cans that you kick down the road. So long bad contract. A lot of people own a lot of businesses that have a lot of bad contracts. And we've seen it with little companies all the way up to Fortune 500s. It's real easy to do. The environment over the last decade has changed dramatically. The sophistication level of co-men have changed dramatically. 20 years ago when I got into it, a vast majority of co-men were family-run operations. Now, 20 years later, majority of them are equity-backed as well, or the results of roll-up. Our site 10 years ago didn't exist. Now it's 39 plants, and they've grown through acquisition. So, Shears 20 years ago didn't exist. Now Shears is $1 billion company. So there's a lot of roll-ups, a lot of consolidation, and a lot of private equity that's coming on the co-man side. So contracts have had to grow to reflect that. You know, there's still common that we deal with that don't even understand why there's contracts because they've had 20-year relationships that were handshakes. You know, I mean, we have one co-man who's on his 4th generation, 90 plus years in business. Yeah, 90 plus. And the original customers, old Chicago family, they've handshake deals for tens of millions of dollars, right? And it's like, well, they never think to put it in. One of those guys got bought, and all of a sudden they put in contracts around like 20 items in 30 days before close because they got bought by a strategic who's like, we can't have this much that's not, firmed up. But when you get in a bad one and it's long, it's the most soul-sucking experience. I mean, we had one client who had a 4-year contract, a 4-year agreement, and they had no outs built into it for quality. So they had 7 reportables in 7 months, like metal in product, boxes not sealing, things like that. There was no way for them to get out of it because they didn't have their appropriate exit mechanism. So they actually had a person who caused a recall, had 2 near recalls, and still had to pay the $450,000. Oh yeah, it was like $450,000 to get out of it. So really a long bad contract, sometimes it's worth just paying to get out of it. What we do. Pricing is my favorite thing to talk to people about. As frequently as you can, have transparent pricing. What that means is you know what the ingredients cost individually, you know what the packaging costs individually, and then you have tolling or conversion. Tolling and conversion is the money that the co-man makes for doing the work. And a lot of people want to know, oh, well, how much of it's labor, how much is this, how much of that? Doesn't matter, it's not your business, you don't care. That's theirs to manage. Ingredients, they kind of are what they are. Packaging is what it is. Most of it is commodity-based, or at least close to it, so it fluctuates. You want to have that transparency because every co-man builds a budget for what their costs are going to be. And they have to put in a certain amount of risk into that budget. And if it goes too far over, they're going to come to you asking for a price increase anyway. If it's under, you receive no benefit. But their goal is not actually to make money on ingredients. It's to hedge their risk. Like, they're not waking up saying, oh, we're going to make an extra 10% on ingredients. They're praying to God that they don't wind up on the other side every day. So by having those breakouts on products, you're assuming that risk. Where it comes in handy is as your volume grows on your unique ingredients, the costs generally come down until you get to a certain, critical mass. With that transparency, during the time when you're spending buckets of money growing your brand, you have that extra money. So, if you plan on it being $1, ingredients go down, so your total is 90 cents, that extra 10 cents, since all your businesses are operating in the red, you're plowing back into marketing, into distribution and everything, and in turn, having the co-man make more widgets. And so the co-man wins and you win in that scenario. Now, when it goes the other way, and you had it as $1 and it goes to $1.10, all your competitors are having the same problem. And your co-man has an obligation, his family and his business, to be raising your prices. So he's going to come to you with that cost increase. And you won't have the visibility to know, hey, is my co-man a good guy and he's just trying to cover, his costs? Or in your mind, you're going, he's taking this unreasonable increase. I can't tell you how many phone calls a week I get from, my co-man's horrible, he's robbing me. So, every name in the book, to just turn around and be like, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, this, that, the other thing. I'm like, okay, what's his pricing? They're like, oh, it's this. I'm like, you actually have a pretty good price for what you're doing now, even after he takes the increase. He's taking that increase to feed his family. He's not taking that increase because he's, a bad person. So you need to, with that transparency, you can understand where the costs are going. And the co-man looks at it and that $1 to $1.10 before he takes that increase, he's no longer having to hedge for it. It's $1.03. All right, it's $1.03. I don't care. I care about those numbers I can control, which my overhead, my labor, my plant, my profit. You know, I can concentrate my business on what I actually can concentrate on. So that level of transparency is actually good for both parties. It allows you guys to have a good working relationship and keeps it as more of partners as opposed to transactional relationships where I'm just buying from you. Yeah, that slide made it in there, didn't it? Super professional slide for you. No, I mean, the point of this one is don't just assume that, oh, this is the case. It goes back to assuming that you can have your product go anywhere, assuming that, you know, your recipe is yours, assuming that, you know, it's going to be the same guy across the table from you, assuming that you're going to be the same guy across the table from him. You know, it's assuming that they're actually going to be able to hit a 2-week lead time in the peak of their season with no notification. It's, you know, it's all those assumptions that just turn around and bite you in the butt. So don't assume anything. Wow, this thing really does jump. It's pretty good. Like ours at the office, you have to like smash down, pick one of these up, right? Infrequent review of material costs. The other thing is you have to have a true-up period that is reasonable. So have it quarterly. That's what I tell everybody to do. Unless you're an infrequent order, then you move to like biannually. What you don't want to do is have it be an annual review or any of that stuff. You don't want anybody to be too ahead or too far behind for too long of a time. So I recommend quarterly because nobody's going to have that much money out either way over a quarter. And over time, it all balances out. So your tolling you want to get fixed for as long as you can. It's those raw materials and packaging that you want to revisit on some kind of set schedule. Finding your match. Finding your match for a co-man. This goes back into size. So what everybody wants from their contract manufacturer is reliability, scalability, and responsibility. You know, when he says, I'm going to have it to you in 4 weeks, you want it in 4 weeks. You don't want it in 3.5 weeks. You don't want it in 4.5 weeks. You want it in 4 weeks because you planned all your cash flow when you're shipping it. So that's where reliability. Accountability. When they make a mistake, they raise their hand. I had a client who was unbelievably off the rails upset with their co-man and came to us, and they were an existing client, and it was a co-man that we put them in, and they were every name in the book, and I was just like, calm down, I'm playing catch up here, what happened? And he goes, they totally screwed up making this, you know, all this. I'm like, are we talking market withdrawal? Like, oh no, they caught it. I'm like, what'd they do with it? Well, they're landfilling it. I'm like, they give you proof of destruction? Yeah, that's how I found out. They sent me this proof of destruction. I'm like, well, what about the bottles? They're like, well, they refunded me for them. I'm like, well, where's the problem? Well, they missed the delivery time period. I'm like, so let me get this straight, because I'm a slow Southern boy from Georgia. You're upset because the guy realized he made a mistake, didn't come to you saying that any of it was your responsibility, immediately had the product destroyed, gave you a proof of destruction form, and put you immediately into the production schedule in 2 weeks. By the way, it's 2 weeks because we got to get all new ingredients here. It's not 2 weeks because, he didn't want to disrupt his system. And then paid you back for your bottles and caps that went back. They're like, yeah. I'm like, no, that's a responsible adult. That's how business is supposed to work. You're not supposed to have to tell your co-man, this is out of spec, take it back. That is a good relationship. That's somebody who has accountability. Again, it all goes into finding a match. And then size. I mean, every day I have people who are with somebody who's huge or with somebody who's tiny. It's just as bad. As you grow, you don't want to pull from a tiny supplier, but you want to add a larger supplier. The reason being is that tiny suppliers become so dependent on your business that they don't have a business unless they have you. And you never want to take two businesses because you have a downturn. And you don't want to pull everything because that's the person who took a chance on you when no one else would. But you start readjusting the type of business that you give them. And you start talking about joint investment and things like that so that you can help them grow their business. Apple's not an orange? Yeah, don't try and make something fit. It either does or it doesn't. It's like when you're dating, if you're trying to fix it all the time, it's just broken. Like, don't pick up and move on. Don't try and make it what it isn't. How do you make sure you don't make these mistakes? Hire me, shameless plug. No, I mean, really, the contract terms is look at everything as if, all right, our relationship's off the rails and things are going wrong. How does this work out? Because that's most of the time when your contracts come out is when everything's off the rails. Make sure you have an expert review before you sign. I don't care if it's me. I don't care which lawyer it is. I don't care what firm you use. Make sure it's somebody who knows something about food that has seen these things before and have them go through it. Because when I was on the contract manufacturer side, you won't believe the amount of contracts that just came back signed 5 minutes later. And I'm like, no, really, you want your lawyer to look at this? They're like, oh no, I trust you. I'm like, no, I'm supposed to negotiate this with you for a living. You need somebody who knows what they're doing, review and sign this. You won't believe how many agreements we get in the middle of diligence where you look at this and you're like, nobody read this. There's literally typos in the contract. That's how, they save $2,000 not having a lawyer review it, and it's costing them tens of thousands of dollars later. If somebody who understands contracts doing it, and pick a real firm in the food industry, not your real estate lawyer, not your buddy Jeff who you went to high school with. Pick a grown adult in the business to do it. Once you're in the contract, you want to have the highest level of value with your co-man. Be friendly. Have it be somebody they want to see and they want to talk to. Don't be beating them up on price all the time. Because here's the thing, a co-man is a hotel. They only got so many rooms, and when the hotel is full, somebody's going to walk to the Motel 6 down the street. If you're the guy who's easy, who's flexible, who they like dealing with, who, kid's wedding they went to, you sent flowers when their wife was in the hospital, you're that person, it'll be a cold day in hell before they walk you down. You're not on their list of people to get rid of. If you're calling, complaining all day, if you're that client who had unrealistic expectations when somebody actually stood up and was accountable, and you're those people, you get asked to leave. So really try and keep it a positive relationship. That doesn't mean be a doormat. You have to hold them accountable. If they make product not to spec, don't buy it, even if you cut out in the market, because you would rather not have the product out there than have an inferior quality product out there. Because the last thing you want is put garbage out there just so you can say you filled the order and have a truckload worth of people who never buy it again because they think your product's garbage. Cool, I made it through all the way. Sorry, she had the 1 minute. I'm like, speed pass. So does anybody have any questions? Go for it. Yeah, sure. The high points on IP is if you don't own your recipes, you need to. Just make sure you have that down. If it's a standard industry process, then inside your contract, you need to make sure that both parties recognize that this isn't something that either party owns, that it's just a standard industry practice. If they come back and say that, no, we have, the special sauce or whatever it is, you go back to them and say, that's fine. What you own the special sauce, but just for avoidance of doubt, if I ever go anywhere in the future, like, hey, co-man, you're in, New Jersey, and I start selling in California, I'm not selling, popsicles clear across the country. Doesn't make sense that I have a, royalty-free, perpetual license worldwide to use that process anywhere else. you want to make sure that you take things on IP that they're allocated somewhere, because it's where when you expand, you wind up getting hurt. Yeah. And did you develop your recipe or did you co-man? Yes. Correct. That's the assumption. You do realize that co-packer does this for a living. And odds are whatever you're showing them, they can demonstrate prior knowledge. So if they can demonstrate prior knowledge, your NDA won't take effect. Because an NDA only protects what I tell you, what you learn from me, what I learn from you. It does not protect what I already knew or what you already knew. Then, yeah, if it's a new technique on how you fill it, you know, like, you have a franchise. Sorry, she just told me I'm getting kicked out. I'm going to need the effort. All right, everyone, thank you.